Hello, boys and ghouls, and welcome back to Dark Shadow, a place where we discuss all things creepy in video gaming and in real life. Today, we're going to talk about Annabelle, a haunted doll, and the true story behind Annabelle, which is really rather interesting. Almost 40 years after an incident involving a possessed doll had occurred, a series of horror films based on a true story was created. The Conjuring was a movie based on an alleged real-life paranormal case of acclaimed real-life demonologists and married couple Edward and Lorraine Warren. The Conjuring film was so well received in 2013 that it spawned a whole cinematic universe based on paranormal cases that the Warrens had taken on. Even though she didn't get a lot of screen time in the movie, and The Conjuring had nothing to do with her, the runaway star that got her own spin-off was Annabelle, the possessed doll. Now, while the story of Annabelle is allegedly true, the movie did take some liberties as well as changes in Annabelle's look, purpose, and origin. Here are the quote-unquote facts of Annabelle. In 1970, a nursing student by the name of Donna received a doll from her mother as a birthday gift. The doll was not the doll you see in the movies at all. It was an innocent-looking, vintage Raggedy Ann doll. These dolls are the absolute least intimidating looking and very simply made. These are not dolls that require batteries or have any plastic parts. The doll is complete cloth. Donna brings the doll to the apartment she shares with her roommate Angie. Donna places the Raggedy Ann doll on her bed and thinks nothing of it. This is where everything began to get weird. The doll seemingly began to do weird things on its own. Small things at first. It would change positions on the bed, or even change positions of its limbs. At first the women wrote it off as their imaginations and thought nothing of it, but the explanations ended when the doll began to exhibit stranger behavior and found in stranger positions. To say the women were beginning to become even more freaked out is a complete understatement. Donna and Angie began finding the doll in different rooms from where they last left it. They'd leave it in the bedroom, they'd find it on the couch. Rather than just sitting in a lifeless position as a rag doll would be when you set one down, they'd find its arms folded, its legs crossed, or both. They'd even find it standing upright, leaning on something for balance. Again, these Raggedy Ann dolls had no weighted or plastic parts, no wireframes. They were made entirely of cloth and stuffing. This doll couldn't be left to stand up during normal play. Here it is, standing, with help by leaning on something. But how? The doll then began closing doors. Donna would leave the doll on the couch, go to work, and return to find the doll missing from the couch. Her bedroom door would be closed, and Donna would find the doll on her bed. The doll began to write. They'd find cryptic messages, such as "Help me," scrawled in what appeared to be a child's handwriting. These notes, the doll moving, closing or opening doors, and the doll standing or limbs in various positions all began to become too much. Things only accelerated when a friend of the ladies by the name of Lou had quote-unquote met the Raggedy Ann doll. He had a terrible feeling about the doll and felt uneasy around it. He advocated several times for Donna to get rid of the doll. This seemed to accelerate the doll's behavior. The handwritten notes began to have "Help us" or "Help Lou" scrawled on them. Lou began having nights where he'd wake up from a deep sleep and be completely paralyzed. He looked down at his legs and saw the doll glide up his legs, sit on his chest, and begin to strangle him. He passed out, but he woke up the next morning and swore it wasn't a dream. The final straw came when Donna and Angie saw blood dripping from the doll's hands and saw some blood on the doll's chest. At this point, they decided to contact a medium. They needed to truly understand this doll and its intentions. The medium held a seance in the apartment, and through the medium, much was revealed. Inside of the Raggedy Ann doll was the soul of a 7-year-old girl by the name of Annabelle Higgins. Stories differ as to how Annabelle ended up in the doll. Some reports claim she either lived near Donna's apartment or her body was found near the apartment. Regardless, Annabelle's tragic tale came to light. Annabelle revealed that she felt safe, comfortable, and loved around Donna and Angie. Annabelle's tale was so tragic that Donna and Angie allowed Annabelle to remain with them. This turned out to be a huge mistake that the ladies would soon come to regret. The strange happenings continued, including the sleep paralysis experienced by Lou. Things really came to a head when Lou and the roommates were preparing for a road trip. As they got ready, a bunch of noise began to come from Donna's room. It sounded as if a scuffle was taking place in her room behind the closed door. Lou went to investigate, but when he opened the door, there was no evidence of a fight at all. Annabelle was alone and on the floor. As Lou went to pick the doll up, he began to feel pain around his chest. He was bleeding. Opening his shirt, he and the roommates were horrified to see claw mark cuts on his chest. He healed quickly, and in 2 days the claw marks completely gone. This was a step too far. Donna finally began to believe that the spirit within her Raggedy Ann doll was not a playful 7-year-old girl, but the spirit of something evil. She decided this time that a medium won't cut it. This time, she contacted a priest by the name of Father Cook. Through connections within the church, the Warrens were called in to take this mystery. Ed and Lorraine Warren had rose to some infamy, being that they were involved in the Amityville case. Yes, that Amityville case. The Amityville horror. Upon hearing Donna's story, the Warrens determined that the Raggedy Ann doll was not possessed, as according to the New England Society for Psychic Research, inanimate objects could not possibly be possessed. They believed that the doll was instead being manipulated by an inhuman presence. Said presence was using the doll to create the illusion of being alive. This demonic presence was attached to the doll only to find a human host to possess. By their estimation, the presence was weeks away from achieving its goal of possessing one of the women. The possession could mean the demise of whichever woman became possessed. They gave Donna and Angie a rundown of what they unknowingly did and why they were currently in such a dark predicament. And perhaps we can all learn from this list. When the demon marked them, it began moving the Raggedy Ann doll around the apartment to pique the curiosity of the women. This obviously worked, as Donnie and Angie would find the doll in strange places, in strange positions, and behind closed doors. Next, by bringing a medium in and having a seance to communicate with it, the demon preyed on the vulnerability of the women. It did this by pretending to be a scared, innocent young girl, and the ruse worked. Donna had given permission to the demon, calling itself Annabelle Higgins, to stay with them in the apartment. The demon was gaining energy and would possibly possess one of the women. Both would be in danger and could possibly end the lives of both women. At the end of the investigation, the Warrens believed that an exorcism should be performed at the apartment so that the demon would leave the women alone. After the cleansing, Donna asked that the Warrens take the doll with them. She feared the phenomena would occur again. The Warrens agreed to the request. They took Annabelle with them, and they would soon find out that the exorcism did cleanse the demon from the apartment, but the presence stayed with the doll itself. While driving, the Warrens said that their car would swerve on its own and the brakes would fail. Ed Warren used holy water on the doll in an attempt to stop the doll. Doing so allowed them to finish the trip. However, the doll continued its nonsense. Once the Warrens got the doll home, it would move throughout the house just as it did in Donna's apartment. It even levitated near Ed's desk. Father Jason was called in to take a look at the doll. Again, demons were said to be unable to possess inanimate objects by the NESPR. The priest stated firmly while holding the doll, "You are just a rag doll, Annabelle. You can't hurt anyone." However, Lorraine Warren felt anxious about the demon attached to the doll. She asked Father Jason to call them when he got home and to be cautious while driving. Father Jason called 3 hours later. His brakes had given out in an intersection, totaling the car. At the back of the Warrens' home was a place dedicated to their paranormal investigations. It was later called the Warrens Occult Museum. A young couple had visited the museum, and the man tapped on the glass which Annabelle was kept behind. Ed had asked them to leave, and so they did. They hopped on the man's motorcycle and took off. The girlfriend contacted the Warrens much later and recounted an accident that they had gotten into upon leaving. The couple was laughing about the doll when the boyfriend suddenly lost control of the motorcycle and crashed into a tree. He died immediately. The Warrens then had a special case built for Annabelle, locked away in their occult museum and surrounded by other items from their investigations, and in this way, no one can ever be harmed again, or so they hoped. So, do you believe this tale of Annabelle? Some people speculate that the myths and legends surrounding the Warrens are of their own doing, that the cases they've been on have been exaggerated or played up, that they got into people's heads via suggestion. Skeptics claim that the Warrens Occult Museum is full of items and books you can find anywhere, and dismiss it all as stage-like flair. But to be so trusted by the church, by clients, and to have such strange phenomena happen around them, could they truly be con artists? Is all this supernatural activity mere coincidence? Or are the Warrens the real deal? Was there a demon possessing the doll, or at least attached to it? And was it truly a demon? Or was it the soul of a 7-year-old girl who was angry about dying at such an early age? Misguided and unable to see the light, growing colder as time passed, growing ever angrier and jealous of the living. I leave these thoughts to you as you clutch your teddy bear, wait for sleep to overtake you, or sit with the lights out. Sweet dreams.